Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. It's great to see so many of you online today. So firstly, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today as we explore the implications of hybrid work on payroll. My name's Joel Smith. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Affinity Payroll, which means I'm responsible for our go-to-market and business growth strategies. Got a long history, longer than I'd care to admit or think about, of working in technology leadership roles, and have got extensive experience working in payroll, HRIS, and financial services technology businesses across Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. I'm joined today by Jaimee Sterling, who I'll hand over to introduce herself.
Thanks, Joel. As mentioned, my name is Jaimee, and my role here at Affinity is as a payroll manager. And I work closely with a number of our fully managed customers, processing and managing their payrolls. I've been working in the payroll industry for over 10 years now and have been managing payrolls for both New Zealand and Australian customers.
Thank you, Jaimee. Now, just a couple of quick housekeeping items to start off with. We're going to run for approximately 25 minutes or so today, so not for too long. We'll allow about 5 minutes for some Q&A at the end, which will be submitted through the chat or Q&A function that you've got there in Zoom. So if you've got any questions as we go throughout the webinar, please feel free to post them in the chat, and Mel, our administrator, is going to collect those and feed them through to myself and Jaimee at the end. We'll endeavour to answer as many of those questions as we can. If there's any we can't answer, we'll circle back round to you individually afterwards. We're also going to run a very quick survey or poll at the end just to capture your feedback. We always like to get your feedback on how these webinars have gone, because we run them monthly, and love to hear if there's any good ideas. So time to get stuck into hybrid work and the impact that it's having on payroll. Here's a quick look at what we're going to be covering in this session. We're going to be exploring post-COVID changes to the way that we all work. And then we're going to explain how to create a payroll environment that can handle hybrid work and the important elements to that. And we'll talk about ways to future-proof payroll as well. And finally, we're going to open the floor for that Q&A session. So let's jump into the webinar. Now, as mentioned, the COVID-19 pandemic did bring about unprecedented changes to the world of work. Everyone on this call will have seen that, with remote work becoming the new normal for many businesses in Australia and New Zealand, and of course around the world. However, as the pandemic begins to recede and people come out of hibernation, there's a shift towards a hybrid model of work where employees are often splitting their time between working from home and working in the office, a much more flexible way. Now, hybrid work offers a number of benefits for both employees and employers. For employees, it can allow for a better work-life balance, as they can work from home on days when they need to care for children or handle other personal responsibilities. And that flexibility can also lead to increased productivity and job satisfaction. And for employers, hybrid work can provide access to a wider pool of talent, because you can hire employees from different geographical locations that may not have been possible previously. And then it also helps to reduce costs associated with office space, because fewer employees typically are required to be in the office at any given time. So despite those many individual benefits, though, remote and hybrid work can present challenges for businesses throughout the world, fundamentally changing the way that we work. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, most organizations enacted robust protection measures in the workplace, mobilizing those who could work from home and providing an unprecedented and more holistic level of support to their people. And this didn't just change the way that we work, but it also changed expectations of the workforce. And as the world begins to recover from the pandemic, many employees are seeking a new normal that offers more flexibility and a new level of balance in their work and personal lives. And while many workplaces have mandated a return to the office, employees are still voicing a strong desire to retain some of that greater flexibility. And the prospect of reporting into the workplace for a 9-to-5 job has clearly become more unappealing, with Randstad's 2023 Work Monitor report indicating that 83% of APAC workers prefer a flexible workday, and 76% state that flexibility in terms of their location was also important to them. And interestingly, from a talent acquisition perspective, 45% of those who were surveyed said that they would not accept a job if it didn't offer accommodating hours or remote and hybrid arrangements. And 27% have even admitted quitting a role that didn't offer the flexibility that they required. Now, in Australia, the current legislation for flexible work states that employees who are permanent or regular casuals and have completed 12 months of continuous service are able to make a request for flexible working arrangements, providing they fall into one of the categories that you can see on the screen there, numbered 1 through 5. Now, based on these requirements, employers can currently still refuse a request for flexible work on reasonable business grounds. However, an expansion of these flexible working arrangements will come into effect from the 6th of June, 2023, assuming that date doesn't change. And these changes will mean that employers must provide detailed reasons for any refusal of flexible working arrangements and must inform employees of alternative working arrangements that they would be willing to offer. So if an employer refuses a request for flexible work and doesn't meet the new requirements, employees will then be able to apply to the Fair Work Commission for the Fair Work Commission to arbitrate a dispute. So to avoid compliance issues, employers should start reviewing their current practices for flexible work requests and implementing new processes to align with the criteria that are set out in the Act. And additionally, it's important that employers consider how they communicate processes around flexible work requests and think about how they might have to evidence any limitations in providing those flexible work arrangements. So this is definitely something for the HR community to be very well aware of and understanding, because it's clear that the future power dynamic between organisations and employees will be heavily influenced by this shift in attitudes towards hybrid and remote work. The rise of hybrid work in Australia and New Zealand marks a new chapter in the world of work, offering this more flexible and dynamic approach. But there are also those challenges that come with that transition to hybrid work, especially when it comes to payroll.
That's right, Joel. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on payroll for businesses around the world. With many employees now working from home, businesses have had to adapt their payroll systems and processes to accommodate these remote workers. For some, this has meant implementing time tracking systems and calculating pay differently for remote employees. For an example, each state and territory in Australia has their own set of payroll obligations. With remote work arrangements, existing employees may have moved interstate, requiring changes to the way their payroll tax is paid. So while flexibility is great for employees, it can cause some upstream issues for the business, especially if the payroll team is not notified of the move. And this is just one example of a series of significant compliance challenges businesses are facing as they attempt to navigate changing laws and regulations related to pay, taxes, and benefits for hybrid and remote workers. Payroll professionals saw a number of legislative changes through the pandemic and were required to rapidly respond to new and amended government support programs such as JobKeeper in Australia. JobKeeper required employers to make weekly payments to eligible employees and then claim a reimbursement from the government. This created additional administrative responsibilities for payroll departments as they had to manage the eligibility criteria, process the weekly payments, and ensure compliance with the program's rules and regulations. In addition, JobKeeper was also required payroll departments to update their systems and processes to accommodate the new requirements and to ensure that payments were calculated and processed accurately. The pandemic has had a significant financial impact on many businesses, leading to layoffs, furloughs, and reductions in hours. And this has had a ripple effect on payroll as businesses have had to adjust their processes to account for unexpected changes in the workforce. It also became vital to have a way of accurately tracking the hours worked by remote and hybrid employees to ensure compliance with labour laws and regulations. Many employers needed to implement systems and processes that allowed them to accurately track and manage leave requests and approve or deny these requests in a timely manner. With all this change came a push for adoption of technology to take the place of traditional manual processes to ensure business continuity. This accelerated the use of technology in payroll processing, such as automation, online portals, and self-service tools to enable employees to access their pay, timesheets, and scheduling information remotely. While there were improvements in efficiency from increased access to technology, working from home means employees may not be on a secured network or have the physical security requirements to protect confidential information. This has inevitably increased the risk of cyber attacks and data breaches, leading to an increased focus on payroll data security. The COVID-19 pandemic has created a lot of challenges for business when it comes to payroll and has forced many to adapt and evolve their payroll processes to keep up with the changing workforce and changing regulations. As a result, there's been an increased demand for payroll professional advice on payroll and compliance issues.
Thanks, Jaimee. It certainly has been a disruptive couple of years, and notably there are still a number of challenges that persist even after the shift from fully remote to hybrid working. And you touched on this earlier, but one area that must be a key focus for businesses with growing hybrid workforces is local tax laws and government regulations. Remote and hybrid arrangements can wreak havoc on payroll taxes. As organisations adapt to this new normal of having remote and hybrid workforces, it's important to understand the tax and employment compliance aspects of engaging and retaining those workforces. Employers need to take action to help handle taxes and other regulatory obligations on the business and help employees understand their own tax obligations as well. And something that can complicate this a little further is that it's becoming increasingly common for workforces to include a multifaceted group of workers, consultants, contractors, subcontractors, temporary workers, gig workers, freelancers, all provide services to companies and are subject to different job entitlements and benefits. And unlike permanent staff, managing the pay structures for contingent and hybrid employees is a whole process on its own, as they come with unique work models. You know, the growth of this global hybrid workforce has opened the talent pool, you know, the global talent pool, but then hiring employees from those different countries also isn't as simple as it sounds. It has a lot of risk factors to consider. And besides managing employee productivity and performance, there are compliance risks when hiring employees globally that you have to be conscious of, because organizations have to meet all local employment requirements, irrespective of company policy. Not to mention how difficult managing sick and annual leave can be with hybrid workforces. Keeping track of employee attendance and the leave requests can be challenging when employees are working from different locations. And traditionally, employees would take a full day of sick leave if they were unwell. However, now with the flexibility of remote working, they may be inclined to take sick leave in hours instead of in days. And without proper tracking, it can be nearly impossible to monitor worked hours. So to address this and other payroll challenges that are emerging as a result of this new hybrid workforce, organizations have to consider a strategic plan for payroll.
Hybrid work and flexible working arrangements have become a standard expectation for many employees and job seekers. It's a new standard that's unlikely to be going away in its entirety anytime soon. So what can your organisation do to remain compliant if you have a complex workforce? Firstly, it's important to stay informed about changes in laws and regulations related to hybrid work. This includes staying up to date on changes to minimum wage rates, overtime rules, and other laws that may impact your workforce. The best way to do this is to attend webinars or events and make sure you sign up to email updates from governing bodies. In Australia, this includes the Australian Payroll Association, TAPS, Fair Work, and the ATO. And in New Zealand, you can elect to receive updates from organisations such as NZPPA, MBIE, and the IRD. Businesses need to have or create clear policies and procedures for tracking and reporting employee hours and pay. This includes having a system in place for employees to report their hours, as well as a process for reviewing and approving those hours. This also leads into the need for employers to keep accurate records of employee information, including hiring and termination dates, salary, and tax withholding. It's also important to regularly review and audit payroll records to ensure accuracy and compliance. Develop good communication and training programs for managers and employees to ensure compliance with payroll and employment laws. This includes having clear policies in place for how to handle payroll errors and disputes, and ensuring that all employees are provided with accurate and timely pay slips. And finally, it's important to seek professional advice if you have any doubts or questions about how to handle payroll and compliance in a hybrid work environment. If it's all seeming a bit overwhelming, Affinity does have a solution to help you future-proof your payroll for the new world of work, which Joel's going to take you through now.
Thanks, Jaimee. There certainly is a lot for businesses to consider, and it's clear that hybrid work has had a huge impact on payroll and will continue to. So what can you do to future-proof your business? Well, at Affinity, we've built our technology with the complex workforces of today and the future in mind. But unlike other pure payroll tech vendors, our payroll solution is backed by a team of accredited experts and compliance specialists, people like Jaimee here. So here are some of the ways to future-proof your payroll, and these are some of the key features that underpin the Affinity offering. And first of all, we'll start with automation. We'll work our way through some of these. Implementing automated payroll systems that can handle different types of pay, taxes, and compliance requirements will help to ensure that your processes are accurate, efficient, and compliant. Payroll is very complex, the nature of it is very complex, but there are many elements that are able to be codified and automated to take out the risk of manual intervention. And then having a flexible payroll environment that can adapt to changes in laws, regulations, employee demographics, employee numbers, will help to ensure that the business is able to respond quickly to changes in the workforce. If there's one thing that we know, is that there will be changes in your workforce. And that leads into scalability, building a payroll environment that can easily scale to meet the needs of a growing or changing business. This is going to ensure that your business is able to handle changes in the size and structure of the workforce. We saw a lot of businesses contracting significantly during COVID, but are now growing rapidly. So scalability is vital. And compliance is huge. Maybe compliance should be first on this list, I don't know, but many companies don't have the capacity to hire their own internal compliance experts. And without this resource, it can be very difficult for payroll teams to keep track of changes. So partnering with payroll compliance experts is going to help minimize the risk of penalties and other legal issues. And the penalties for getting compliance wrong are becoming increasingly punitive. I'm sure everyone on this webinar is aware of that already. Ensuring that payroll data is secure and protected against cyber threats is going to help protect you and your employees from data breaches and other security incidents. Payroll has to ensure that sensitive employee data, which includes salary information, obviously, is stored securely and in compliance with local privacy laws in every location where employees are working. I'm sure you've all seen the headlines about businesses that have not been able to adequately secure their data, and you definitely don't want your business in the news for the same reason. And then finally on this slide, employee self-service, providing employees and managers with the tools and resources that they need to manage their own payroll and benefits information is going to help reduce the administrative burden of payroll and improve employee satisfaction. Now, having robust reporting in place that can provide real-time visibility into payroll data will help to ensure that managers in your business and other stakeholders have the information that they need to make informed decisions no matter where they are. And then analytics and actionable insight is a natural extension of reporting that should be provided through your payroll solution. And of course, having a cloud-based payroll solution that can be accessed from anywhere is going to help ensure that your business can continue to operate, process payroll, even if there are disruptions to the office spaces. Payroll is this mission-critical function, and it needs to be able to happen no matter what. And then having a system that is mobile-friendly will help to ensure that employees and managers can access payroll information and complete tasks as well from anywhere at any time. It's how everybody works these days. Regularly seeking professional advice, as Jaimee mentioned before, to ensure that your environment is in compliance with laws and regulations, and also to identify and address any issues as they arise, will help to ensure that your business is able to anticipate and respond to changes in the workforce. Finally, establishing clear guidelines and policies is crucial for the success of hybrid work in the business. The policy should define the responsibilities and expectations of both employees and employers, as well as providing clear instructions for communication, collaboration, decision-making, and access to resources that are necessary for effective work. And if your current provider or payroll environment doesn't offer these elements that we've just discussed, we'd love to have a conversation with you to see if we can assist in transforming your payroll environment. Okay, so let's just jump into a little bit of a Q&A, and I might just ask Mel if there are any questions to feed through. Here we go, we have the first one here. My business is based in New Zealand and the Holidays Act is causing us some headaches. How does Affinity ensure compliance for your New Zealand customers? Great question. This is something that we are asked often by our conversations when we talk to businesses in New Zealand. So for us, compliance with the Holidays Act is really dependent on three key elements, like most elements of compliance. Firstly, you need a technology. We talk about the three Ps: platform, process, and people. So you need a technology platform that's built for the New Zealand market and that complies with local legislation, so is able to treat leave in the right way. Then you need to have qualified payroll professionals who understand the Act and how to calculate it correctly. And finally, you need robust payroll processes in place that allow you to collect employee data and then manage that and manage their time and their and accrue and recognize their leave in the right ways. So we pride ourselves in creating a compliant payroll environment for our customers that tackles each of those three key areas. But look, everyone's circumstances are different. Everyone's experiences different challenges. So when it comes to how we would handle the Holidays Act in your scenario, it probably would be good to have a one-on-one conversation so that we could talk through how we'd handle it for you. So feel free to contact us directly on that one. Okay, so thank you, Mel. We just popped through another question. We've got a flexible workforce across Australia that are constantly working interstates. It can be a real challenge accruing their long service leave. How do you manage it? Another good question, because long service leave in Australia is another element that's particularly complex, because each state has its own rules around long service leave and how it should be paid out and calculated. And it can become very complicated if your organization's operating across a number of different states. You know, additionally, if employees happen to relocate perhaps from one state to another during their employment, they might need to have their long service leave accrued differently. The question then arises as to, well, which long service leave legislation applies to the continuous employment in those cases? So, Jaimee, you're closer to this challenge than I am. Could you give us a real world example, perhaps?
Yeah, we can, Joel. We actually had a discussion about this not that long ago. So let's just assume we have an employee who's worked for 10 years total, 9 years in Queensland, and then moves to the Northern Territory and completes another year of service. I think a lot of employers, and probably employees too, would assume that you'd calculate the long service leave as per the state that they worked in and earned that leave. So in this case, in Queensland for 9 years, 1 year in Northern Territory, that would give them a total of 9.1 weeks of long service leave. But actually, that's not the way the legislation works, and that's incorrect, that the LSL must be accrued in the state which they currently resided at the time of being entitled or due payment. So for the same scenario, that employee would actually be entitled to 13 weeks of long service leave as per the Northern Territory legislation. In some cases, this may benefit the employee, and others they may lose out. But a point to note through that is some states do not recognise interstate service with the same or related employer. So it's important to take that into consideration. Ultimately, you should be seeking professional advice in making decisions about this sort of long service leave for employees who undertake either interstate or maybe overseas service, as there's a number of factors there that you'd have to consider.
Okay, so now, yeah. So this is a great example of why it can be so difficult. And I guess in terms of what are we doing about it at Affinity, you know, this is one of those areas of payroll that is complex, but we feel can be relatively easily codified. And we address these issues and challenges by automating it. We collect all employee data digitally, and we run it through our rules engine to do those calculations for our customers. So automating the process and not doing it manually is generally the best way to achieve compliance, because you're not allowing human error to come through into the calculation. You know, either an error in the calculation or an error in interpreting the legislation. So for us to really assist you with long service leave and the challenges that you might specifically be having, we probably need to understand your specific requirements and understand what your workforce looks like. So we'll be happy to talk to you directly if you need some more help in that area. Okay, any more questions, Mel? It doesn't look like it. No, that's fine. Okay, so I think we're just about done on time anyway. So thank you very much for attending. If you'd like to speak to us and understand how Affinity can help transform your payroll environment, you can contact us through our website, through email, or you can connect on LinkedIn. We always love to chat, so don't be strangers. We're going to release a short survey now, and we're going to love your feedback to help us provide as much value as we can with this webinar series. Thanks for your time today, and that concludes our webinar. We'll see you again next time.